The grand Hawthorne wedding was the event of the century. Billionaire Julian Hawthorne, the city's most eligible bachelor, was finally tying the knot with Seraphina Thorne, a woman of equal standing. The crystal chandeliers gleamed, the champagne flowed, and the city's elite watched as the beautiful bride began her walk down the aisle. But just as the officiant began to speak, the grand doors burst open. 3 small children, no older than 7, marched down the aisle with a determination that defied their size. 2 boys and a girl, all with the same striking dark hair and intense gray eyes as the groom. The crowd gasped. The triplets stopped directly in front of Julian, looked him square in the eye, and spoke in unison, their small voices echoing through the silent cathedral. "You can't marry her. You're our dad." Chaos erupted. Cameras flashed, and whispers turned into frantic murmurs. Julian stood frozen, his face a mask of disbelief. These children, they looked exactly like him. His fiancée, Seraphina, hissed, "Julian, do something. Get them out of here." His mother, the formidable matriarch Elias Hawthorne, signaled for security, her face a thundercloud of fury. But before anyone could move, a woman appeared at the end of the aisle. She was beautiful, but her eyes held a storm of pain and defiance. It was Clara Vance. "Julian Hawthorne," she called out, her voice trembling but strong. "Before you pledge your life to another woman, you will acknowledge the children you abandoned." Julian's world tilted on its axis. "Clara, after all these years." The security guards hesitated, looking at Julian, who was paralyzed by the undeniable truth staring back at him from 3 small faces. He was a father. 8 years ago, things were different. Julian wasn't the cold-hearted tycoon he was today. He was an ambitious heir, yes, but he was also deeply in love with Clara Vance, a vibrant, kind-hearted woman from a modest background. Their love was a secret, a stolen paradise away from the prying eyes of his powerful family. They dreamt of a future together, a life built on love, not legacy. But their paradise was shattered when Julian's mother, Eliza, discovered their relationship. She saw Clara as nothing more than a gold digger, a threat to the Hawthorne empire. Eliza gave Julian a cruel ultimatum. Choose the family fortune and the legacy he was born to inherit, or choose Clara and be cast out with nothing. Torn between the woman he loved and the immense pressure of his birthright, a young, terrified Julian made the worst mistake of his life. He chose wealth. He vanished from Clara's life without a word, without a goodbye, leaving her utterly heartbroken and alone. What Julian never knew was that he left more than just a broken heart behind. Weeks after he disappeared, Clara discovered she was pregnant. Not with 1 child, but with triplets. Devastated but resolute, she decided to raise them on her own. She moved to a small town, juggling multiple jobs to make ends meet, pouring every ounce of her love and energy into Elias, Chloe, and Finn. Her only pillar of support was her loyal friend, Dr. Ethan Bell, who stood by her through the sleepless nights and financial struggles, becoming a constant, caring presence in the children's lives. For 8 years, Clara built a life for her family, a life filled with love, even as the shadow of Julian's betrayal loomed. She had never planned to see him again, until she saw the announcement of his lavish wedding. For her children, for their right to know their father, she had to confront the past. Back in the ruined cathedral, Julian's shock morphed into fury. "This is a setup," he roared at Clara, his voice dripping with accusation. "You staged this whole spectacle to humiliate me, to extort money." He pointed a shaking finger at her. "I demand a DNA test." Immediately, he was trying to regain control, to push away the overwhelming guilt and confusion. But his harsh words had an unintended effect. The little girl, Chloe, burst into tears. Elias, the oldest, stood protectively in front of his siblings, glaring at Julian with a maturity far beyond his years. But it was the youngest, Finn, whose quiet words shattered Julian's defenses completely. With tears streaming down his face, he looked up at the towering stranger who was his father and whispered, "Are you going to leave us again?" That simple, terrified question pierced through 8 years of hardened ambition and emotional walls. It wasn't about money or power or scandals. It was about a little boy's fear of being abandoned by his father for a second time. In that moment, Julian saw not a scheme, but the faces of his children, his flesh and blood. The weight of his past decision crashed down on him with suffocating force. He had chosen an empire of glass and steel over them. He dropped to his knees, his expensive tuxedo wrinkling on the marble floor. He looked at each of his children, his own gray eyes swimming with unshed tears. He reached out a trembling hand, and when they didn't flinch away, he pulled all three of them into a desperate, clumsy embrace. The crowd, his mother, his furious fiancée, they all faded away. Holding his children, Julian Hawthorne, the man who had everything, finally understood what he had lost. He looked over their heads at Clara, his voice thick with a regret that was 8 years in the making. "I was a fool," he choked out. He then looked down at his children and made a solemn vow, a promise loud enough for the entire world to hear. "I will never leave you again. If I ever walk away from you, may I lose everything I have ever built." He hugged them tighter, burying his face in their hair. "You," he whispered, his voice breaking, "you are the only empire I want now." Clara watched, her heart a battlefield of old wounds and new hope. Years of anger began to melt away as she witnessed his raw, undeniable remorse. As Julian stood up, still holding his children's hands, he walked to her. He didn't say a word. He simply leaned in and, with a gentleness she hadn't felt in years, he kissed her. It wasn't a kiss of passion, but of apology, of pain, and of a fragile, trembling hope for a new beginning. Their family was broken, but for the first time in a long time, it felt like it could be whole again. Thank you so much for watching this incredible story unfold. What do you think will happen next for Julian, Clara, and their triplets? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you love dramatic stories like this one, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring the bell so you never miss an update.